Oh, here we go. 5 minutes after the hour. The Glen Biegel Show continues. You're listening to KOAN and KVNT. Closing out and filling in for your drive home here out in the valley. And Joe Miller was on here on the Anchorage station. And Lars Larson is on out in the valley just before me. Tom Anderson kicks off on both KOAN and KVNT. Lots of different signals to pick me up on. You can go out to glenbiegel.com in order to check out all the stories that I will be covering today. Well, I don't know that the world has ended. I do wonder whether or not the number of 18 to 21-year-olds using marijuana might have ticked up just a smidgen. I have a feeling that that's the case. And look, a lot of them are going to be out of the house, be in their own apartments, and probably rooming with people who are over 21. And it just so happens that people over 21 are going to be it's, and what are the percentage changes that we expected to happen? I don't even know what apocalypse would look like for this. Questions on my mind having to do with the legalization of marijuana and its outcomes. If you have I don't know that it'll be covered either. To take a look at a still photo of Anchorage and get a sense of where things are. You know what I really would like, though? They've got carbon monoxide detectors, Bonnie, and this is a Glen Biegel show. And I'm expecting that they're going to come out with a detector for secondhand marijuana smoke. Don't you think? A little meter that you'd sort of walk around, because here's where it really would be good. A lot of people in our town live in apartments. Actually, we're at the lowest level of home ownership in the last 20 years now. The grand effort by the Community Reinvestment Act wanted to drive up home ownership in the United States of America. And that has completely fallen away. Most homes are now owned by fewer and fewer people, where our young people are not able to buy homes. So they're just renting, having apartments. But what I'm wondering about is all these people living in apartments, you got to figure there's going to be a dope smoker amongst the group. Oh, and I heard this from the legal counsel for the marijuana movement. He said that if you write a new lease in an existing building, like, let's say you have 12 units in a building, and I have difficulty believing this, and I really would like to know whether or not it's true. If you sign a new lease, but the landlord never wrote in there that you're not allowed to use marijuana in the building, and now he wants to write in there that you're not allowed to use marijuana in the building because it's his building, the marijuana dude, the marijuana legal counsel guy, he says he can't legally require that you sign that lease because your lease would be different than everybody else. I suppose it's a unequal opportunity. We have an equal opportunity clause in the state of Alaska, and maybe that's the unequal opportunity. I guess you could rewrite all the leases, but I don't even legally know how you could do that. Once somebody signs a lease, you're in the lease for however long until it's done. I would be willing to bet you, by the way, that would be legal. I think that the legal counsel for the marijuana is wrong. That just because it was not a situation you had to worry about before, and now it is a situation you want to have to. Each lease that came up, by the way, yeah, you'd have to write. I guess he's right on that, but I bet he's wrong on. It's kind of act of God, like the law of gravity just changed, and instead of attracting objects, now it repels objects, and so thought the law of gravity would change, and therefore I never even considered it. So I think he's wrong on that. I think that if you are going to sign a new lease and the 11 people who are in the apartments, they don't have the marijuana clause in their lease, but your landlord decides, okay, well, I'm writing a marijuana clause. I don't want anybody in my apartment to smoke marijuana. I'm considering it, quote, a public place, and therefore you can go smoke it at your friend's house. But I'm guessing that's legal. Some of these things are going to be ironed out in court. Big battle today going on between Harold Hines, who I've been enamored with over the course of my life. First of all, he's just a comforting voice. I like the way he speaks. He has all this broad spectrum of experience. He was the CEO of Arco, and I actually knew, I think, the CEO that either preceded him or replaced him way back when. So he's been heavily involved in the gas and development side of things. Big believer in, as I take it, state ownership of the means of production, also known as a socialist interpretation. It's all written into the Constitution, or at least, the public ownership of all that stuff. So I'll give you some of his thoughts during the show today. Love to hear from you, 569-1080. That's the number. And Kathy Giesel, who was on the program yesterday, she phoned in and gave some of her concerns for how things are going to turn out. Later in the program, there's one group, finally, who has decided that they are going to speak up. Commonwealth North is going to help. I'll tell you what, I just want people to know. I've heard from a bunch of legislators, and they're all walking tall with their chests puffed out. You have no idea what kind of a buzzsaw you're going to run into if you try and cut the budget against the governor's will without a bunch of footwork done. So we're going to cover that. Commonwealth North has actually produced their suggestion how to reduce state budget, how to protect essential services. Oh, it's critical that these guys have done this. I'm so glad that they have, and they're going to be on with us at 5 o'clock today. Your phone calls welcome as well. Make sure to tune in to Tom Anderson's show to kick off the day, and then finish your drive home with me, the Glen Biegel Show, right here on KOAN and KVNT, the Talk of Anchorage, the Talk of the Valley. Stay tuned. 16 minutes after the hour, it is the Glen Biegel Show. Bonnie Cameron on the other side of the glass, waiting to take your phone calls. 569-1080 and 357-5868. That's 357-KVNT. We're on a whole bunch of signals. It's my pleasure to have you on with me for your drive home. Did you watch American Sniper, Bonnie?
No, I did not.
I haven't watched it either, but I saw it at the theaters. We went to watch The Hobbit, which was like the first movie I've seen in not even know how long.
Yeah, I haven't been to the movie theater anytime
expensive.
lately.
What did it cost me? It cost me like 22, 37.
Oh dear.
40, almost $50.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Actually, it was over $50. And I hadn't added that up before, and now I'm actually depressed. Anyway, so yeah, we could have bought the Hobbit in a few weeks and saved ourselves $35.
I actually enjoy just watching it at my home more. I'd rather pay $1.20 on Redbox and just sit there with my own popcorn that costs maybe 25 cents.
All right, feeling worse and worse. No, it's no problem.
But it's quality time with your family, so it was worth it.
The thing is that I think you just got to get the kids out, take them to the movie theater every once in a while.
Yes.
You just have to do that. That's part of it. Yes. Anyway, I didn't get a chance to watch American Sniper. I've heard it's very good. The case that is being brought against the guy who killed Chris Kyle, he is pleading insanity. And so listen to this. This is how hard apparently it is to win an insanity defense. And you're listening to the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. The man was hospitalized multiple times for psychiatric treatment, prescribed medication to treat schizophrenia. He spoke of pig-human hybrids and the apocalypse and was described by Kyle himself as, quote, straight up nuts. But jurors found the insanity defense for Eddie Ray Routh, maybe it's a Ruth, failed threshold, a mental illness so severe that he did not know right from wrong. His case illustrates the difficulty of succeeding with such a defense at a time when a Colorado court is preparing to hear similar arguments in the trial over a movie theater shooting in which 12 people were killed. Now, that dude seriously needs to die. That is, we don't have the death penalty here. The reason why our Supreme Court struck down the death penalty, do you know why they did that?
No.
Because our Constitution says that the purpose of our incarceration is rehabilitation.
No, it's not.
Well, that's what it says in the Constitution. So we
need to change that.
Well, I agree. There are a lot of problems with our Constitution. That is one of them. There are not all killers need to be put to death, but some killers do. Right? That's the test of a decent, responsible society. We should not be putting someone up for the rest of their natural life in a prison cell, in my opinion. If you disagree, love to hear from you. 569-1080 and 357-5868. A lot of people, by the way, who consider this, they think about the personal ideas of forgiveness. And here's the thing that you have to realize. Society that can tax you, right? Another person can't tax you. That's very easy for everyone to understand. Joe, I can't walk into Joe and he can't say, you know what? I'm going to tax you. Just because you walked onto my property, you now owe me $15. Joe does not have the right to tax. That is a government power. Government's job is not forgiveness. Government's job is justice and keeping the peace and making sure that dangerous people who might be in prison for the rest of their lives, and they might kill another prisoner, or they might rape other prisoners, and they might form gangs with other prisoners, and they might corrupt all kinds of people who go into jail. Right? All those things happen every single day. Every one of those things happen every single day. Why do you think it is, by the way, that people who murder other people in cold blood and rape little girls and just do all kinds of horrible, terrible things? The worst case, by the way, I can think of is one out of Vermont. Person went to Vermont and just did horrible things. Did horrible things to the mother, to the daughter, was going to burn the father alive after he did these terrible things in front of him. He escaped naked to a neighbor's house. The guy went to Vermont because they don't have a death penalty, or Connecticut, whatever it was that he went. Okay, that is an embodiment of evil, and our society has to stand up against that. Now, where people get confused and people lose sight of what it is that we're talking about here, I don't care, and society shouldn't care whether or not you've forgiven the person. There's a debt to be paid whether you forgive them or not. You should forgive them. You should work through that pain and hope that their soul goes someplace other than where it's probably destined. You should hope that.
And that forgiveness is not for them, it's for yourself.
It's for yourself, and maybe it impacts their soul, and maybe it even changes them. You know, I've heard of forgiveness performing having an amazing effect on people. But that's not society's concern. Society's not concerned with that. What society is concerned with is we have 46,000 people who are murdered every year. 46,000 or something like that. It goes up and it goes down. That's what we're concerned about. And God only knows how many rapes and other just horrible situations go on. That's society's concern. And one thing we do know is people who do those things, they don't like the idea that they might get punished with death. They don't like it at all. So that's my thoughts on it. 569-1080. I don't know if anybody out there agrees with me or disagrees. So hopefully it doesn't sound like the sniper killer is going to be able to get off with just saying, well, gee, I'm wrong. Because it sounds to me like he actually did. And so I just don't think he's going to be able to reach that level. Anchorage Assembly restricts manufacture of marijuana concentrates with flammables. So apparently, if you can burn it and you put some kind of a petroleum product in it so it will continue to burn, that form of marijuana. This was a all or nothing vote here. It was unanimous. The Anchorage Assembly on Tuesday banned the manufacture of marijuana concentrates using flammable solvents like butane, including hashish or hash oil. I thought we just legalized marijuana. This is what is so confusing to me, because I'm thinking of a whole bunch of people smoking dope. And look, I know a lot of people were smoking dope when they went to college. I don't know. I guess have you ever been to a party where they're smoking marijuana?
No, I have not.
Well, I was at a couple. I was at a fish processor when I was younger, and I worked 5 summers, and I worked a couple years processing fish. And, there were a bunch of people doing crazy stuff, but there were dopers that would smoke dope every day. And that's basically, well, it was a big part of their life. I don't know how much money they spent on it, but, every single morning they were out smoking in their car. I didn't consider them particularly dangerous, but I certainly didn't consider them trustworthy. So
you didn't worry that if they were to get in the car and drive it, that they
weren't going anywhere.
Dangerous?
They were coming into work.
Oh,
they smoked it, when the windows got all steamed up or whatever. Then they came in and processed fish. Processing fish, I guess I might have got some THC.
Stressful.
It's hard work. It was very, very hard work. Anyway, I don't know. We've had a couple of conversations, by the way, one with Allison and Tom yesterday on the program. I thought she brought up a really good point that at different times society makes all these different rules about what you can and can't do. And I think libertarians say, well, society shouldn't have that ability to do that. And I guess I'd ask you the question, do you think child pornography is wrong?
Yes. Most people would say yes.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I really honestly think so. Do you think slavery is wrong? Society makes judgments, and the basic idea is this, that a crowd is smarter than you, because your ideas on what you should or shouldn't do, they come and go. I knew this guy who was a cleaner at a place that I work, and his teeth were all rotted away. Every one of his teeth was half the size that it should be because the tops have been rotted off because he smoked meth. And for people who don't know, methamphetamine is this highly corrosive, essentially just dissolves your tooth enamel. That's why your teeth, your face starts to fall off, and you get all these pock marks. And if you look at the transformation that happens within basically just a couple of years of someone who is a meth addict or a meth user, um, it was his decision that, this is not bad for me. You know, I don't feel like I'm losing anything. When it turns out his teeth were just melting away in his face. What's wrong with that situation? Well, I see two things wrong. First of all, whoever sold him that stuff committed fraud, right? And it's government's job to prevent fraud. You cannot lie to someone, say, I'm going to give you this thing, and the thing that they give you does not have anything to do with whatever. So he didn't know. They said, this is going to rot your teeth out of your head, and it's going to ruin your face, and it may actually kill you. So fraud. And the other thing is, I figured this guy, because he must have used it quite a bit. I mean, it takes a little while to rot your teeth completely out of your head. Probably not as long as you'd think. I bet it happens within 6 months. I bet it happens within 3 weeks. Probably you have permanent damage to your enamel. But anyway, I think part of society's job is to figure out, through the wisdom of crowds, this is fraud and this is slavery. So in my mind, and I'm a conservative, I'm not a libertarian, and so I think society has this role to play. And it was an interesting conversation because over time, society's made all these different pronouncements. She was going to say something about coffee, Allison was. And I don't know what it was. I think maybe there was an additive to coffee, or they made coffee illegal. Maybe Utah did, or something like that. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting discussion and something that I was going to find value in. You have thoughts on it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. 28 minutes after the hour, it's the Glen Biegel Show. Stay tuned. 26 minutes before the hour. Have I told you how good you would look if you won a Wings Wednesday gift certificate? Oh, yes. Wings and Things is out there. 277 Wing. And that is going to get you over to the best wings in the world. And I really would put them up against any other wing in the world. They are, I was eating them 3 times a week, just to let you know. I mean, that is a serious addiction. That is something that can cause problems. But I was losing weight at the time. That was a great thing. It turned out that Atkins and wings were 100% compatible. So I would suggest it necessarily for losing weight, but it did work for me. I loved them. So at the 5:45, we're going to be giving away a $20 gift certificate to Wings and Things, and you will have to give us a call there on the corner of 36th and Arctic, and you can call them 277 Wing is their number. On the phone with me, I've got Corey Ray, who is with the Alaska Cannabis Institute. Corey, what's on your mind? You've done it. We're the 3rd state in the union. It's very exciting, and I'm sure things look pretty positive from where you're sitting.
Sure, yeah. I mean, congratulations on the new time, the new show. But yeah, I think Tuesday came and went, and there wasn't any major changes. I think Mark Mew said, the police chief said, he didn't really make any citations for public intoxication or anything like that. So it came, it went, and we're still here. So yeah, everything looks good on that front. But
well, we already have legalized marijuana, right?
In a sense, right? So you had marijuana.
We had legalized marijuana. Anybody could use marijuana if you were over 21 and have it in your house. You couldn't transport it or sell it or some other things, and you still can't do that because they haven't written the rules for that, or what?
So what you can do under ballot measure 2 is you can possess, you can transport, and you can grow if you're 21 years and older, and you can have up to 1 ounce in your possession when you're in your car, right, or in transport. In your house, you can have up to 6 plants, 3 mature plants and 3 immature plants. What that means is a mature plant actually has a marijuana bud, if you will, on the plant that denotes that it's mature.
And that's what they call a flower, because it doesn't look like a flower to me. It looks like, yeah, like you said, like a bud.
Yeah, so, a sunflower is different than a dandelion, different than a rose, different, So yeah, it's a bud.
How long does it take for the plant to go from what? So what are the 2 different kinds of plants again? So flowering and non-flowering. Does it flower over and over again? By the way.
So it depends on how long you're giving it light, and each grower has their own particular methods and ways that they grow. I don't grow, so I'm not privy on all of that. But the information's out there. It's very similar to growing any other plant. There's a lot of farmers in the valley, so it's no different. There's a lot of experience growing things.
A lot of growers out there already, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, are you expecting the number of 18 to 21-year-old users to go up or down or not change?
That's a good question. I think with Colorado and Washington, the data's still out. But I don't think that it's going to go up. I, in fact, think that it's going to go down. I think by regulating it and putting it behind control, if you will, so people's licenses, people's livelihoods depend on that particular license or that registration they have with the state. I think they'll be responsible with that, similar to alcohol. If you were to ask people in school, young people in school, what's easier to get, alcohol or cannabis right now, because cannabis is unregulated and it's everywhere, they can get cannabis. Now, personally, what I would like to see is a public information campaign. And when folks do turn 21 and they are eligible to drink and they are eligible to consume cannabis, I don't think that they should go out there and drink and consume at the same time. I would like to see a public information campaign, in fact, to wean people out of alcohol and have them consider, if they're going to go out and enjoy themselves and relax on a Friday night, consider cannabis instead, to be honest.
Do you think, talking here with Corey Ray with the Alaska Cannabis Institute, who I think your job and your interest is to make as many small businesses or sales people who've commercialized it as possible? Is that fair or not?
What we're trying to do is just make the American dream come true. So this is an opportunity for a particular generation of people who are passionate about cannabis, who believe in it, who are old enough to do something about that, and who want to work in an industry in which they can have control, they can have a say in their outcomes, right? So there's a lot of people who don't like the 9 to 5, and this is a way in which they can do something that they're passionate about. They can be responsible. They can fulfill a market need. There's already demand. I'm not encouraging people to go out there and recruit new users by going into high schools and trying to get young people.
Why not? You want to use this instead of alcohol? Do you think it'd be better for an 18-year-old to use cannabis instead of alcohol?
No, I don't think an 18-year-old should be using cannabis or alcohol. In fact, I think oftentimes young people will resort to drugs or alcohol or whatever because they're not occupied doing something else. So it's more than just, oh, now that drugs are legal, should we push young people to do drugs? No, we should still encourage them to follow their dreams. So
you don't find it strange at all. New. And I'm talking here with Corey Ray, Alaska Cannabis Institute, and I would imagine you'd say no to this, but you don't find it odd at all to call a previous drug dealer a small businessman?
No, I don't, because we call people back in the past a drug dealer, Al Capone. So I mean, really, I don't find it odd. I just find it, if you want to spin things that way, then obviously that's not a problem. But to be fair to them, if it's legal and the people have voted on it, what's wrong with that, Glenn? What's wrong with the people's vote and the people's will?
I don't know. I liked the idea of decriminalizing it. I know there weren't very many people who went to jail for using marijuana just by itself. But I'm expecting this as sort of the future of this is now we're going to have legalized use. I expect the number of 18 to 21-year-olds who use it to go up pretty significantly and for there to be some secondhand smoke impacts. And we will find out exactly how many people get addicted to this. I've heard it's 9 to 15%, which could be 4 to 6% of the population, depending on how many people end up using marijuana. And then at that point, at some point, the people will look at it and make a decision. Did we really want this many pot shops? Do we want more pot shops than Starbucks and McDonald's? Do we like the new number of users? Do we like having to deal with it on our streets? I just think that people will basically take a second look at it. And I don't know the way that they'll come up. In the meantime, I'm talking here with Corey Ray from Alaska Cannabis Institute. In the meantime, look, I accept the idea that society's not going to back me up. They're not going to make my job raising all of my children easier. They're probably going to make it harder. And that's fine. People are welcome to have a society that sort of reflects their values, and their values are not to assist in the raising of children. I accept that.
Yeah, and that's fair. And it's fair to think about your family and think about the repercussions, of your family and your young ones. But I trust that you're a good parent, and I trust that you'll educate them, and I trust that the first time that they see cannabis or hear about cannabis isn't going to be from their friends. It's going to be through a well thought out educational plan that you and your school system come up with in terms of drug education and just education in general about life. I hope that the first time your child learns about pregnancy isn't from a friend telling them about how they got pregnant. I hope parents do a good job of being proactive as opposed to reactive. And I don't think that legalizing cannabis is a good crutch for, bad parenting. Bad parenting is going to happen regardless if cannabis or alcohol is legal or illegal. What I don't want to hear is folks saying, I not only do I think cannabis should be illegal, I think alcohol should be illegal. I really feel that the best way to live is with an all-free policy, or more or less free policy, whereas you don't tell me how to live my life. I don't tell you how to live my life, insofar as I'm not hurting you, Glenn, and you're not hurting me. And I hope you do well, and I'm sure you hope I do well, and you'll do everything that you can to make sure I do well, insofar as I'm not hurting you.
But all of you together could be hurting me. They could be hurting the roads and the streets. Your productivity could go down at work, and that could hurt me because I have to work with people, and it's up to the business owner to continue to make that illegal, which in most places it still will be.
Yeah, and I believe in the 80-20 principle. I believe that 80% of the consumption will be by probably 20% of the cannabis consuming population. And if those people are what you call quote unquote unproductive, they'll probably find jobs within the cannabis space. So you're not going to have to hire them to, do the hard work of, labor out in the,
So
oil
40%
fields
of
and
people use marijuana, and that would mean like 8% of people are working in the cannabis industry. Is that kind of what you're shooting for? Because it sounds to me like you got pretty big dreams for a lot of people to become active in the marijuana industry.
No, no, not at all. I'm saying the folks who are going to stop at a dispensary on their way home on a Friday night because they want to get something and enjoy their weekend. Are you classifying those people as going to be unproductive, or are you saying the folks who are going to be smoking and consuming more regularly than the average person are going to be unproductive? Trust me, the person who wants to smoke and be unproductive and get as much as they want can do so now. Making a dispensary, available to them isn't going to change that part of their life. But what it will do is for the casual person, the accountant who had a rough week, who just wants to forget about numbers.
A little bit of time. Okay, I got a hard question for you. Corey Ray is on.
Sure.
He's with Alaska Cannabis Institute. Why do you think so many people who used when they were young don't use anymore?
I don't know the numbers on that. To be frank, I can't qualify that. But what I would say is when you become so busy that, you don't have time. So maybe they've got family, they got jobs, they're bringing their kids back and forth to games. They themselves are involved in maybe a sports rec league. They don't have time.
Are you saying in the end, Corey, that this is not a very responsible thing to do, and as your responsibilities grow, this has to be moved out?
I don't understand. What was that? I don't understand the question, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, so we're going to have to leave it there. Corey Ray with the Alaska Cannabis Institute. It's something for you to think about. Go back and think about the question. Why do you think as people's responsibilities grow, they end up being able to use marijuana less? I think you gave a lot of good examples and a lot of good explanations for why people probably do, and I think you're right. It's 14 minutes before the hour. Corey, appreciate it. Thanks so much for calling.
See ya.
Have a good one. Stay tuned, folks. The Glen Biegel Show continues. 569-1080, 357-5868. Wing Wednesday is today. Yes, it is hump day. 10 minutes before the hour here on the Glen Biegel Show. The hour sponsor for this hour of the program, my good friends over at A&A The Shop. If you have a Subaru, well, I've got great news for you. Alaska's Independent Center. And it also happens to be the best shop in Anchorage, the best car shop, 6 out of the last 12 years. I mean, there's probably, 200-300 car shops in the city of Anchorage. This is the best one 6 out of 12 years. It's incredible. The best warranty in the business, ASC certified mechanics, and a place you can really trust. 85-point inspection with every service job. That includes the $30 or $35 oil change that they have there. If you have a Subaru, there is no other place to take it. 562-3919. That's the number here in town. And 696-2096, A&A The Shop, Alaska's Independent Subaru Service Center, and the hour sponsor for this hour of the program. Love to hear from you. 569-1080, 569-1080, and 357-5868 if you are on your drive home. Just find us. Tom's on in the mornings, by the way. Tom Anderson. I call him Anderson because he refers to himself as Anderson, not Tom or Tom Anderson, but in the third person as Anderson. So I'm going to call him Anderson. The Anderson Show is on 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the mornings, and I am on here on KOA and KVNT, Anchorage in the Valley. For your listening pleasure, love to hear from you. 569-1080. Let me go to Sarah. Sarah, welcome.
Hi. I'm talking to you from Eagle River, and my question was actually on gun rights.
All right.
But this used to be the Tom Anderson Show, but I listened to it over the computer when I'm doing my work.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. You can go to, I think it's 1020kvnt.com, and you can stream us there at 1080koan.com. It's the best sounding signal because it's just digitally real. It goes right out to the internet, comes right down to your computer, all digital, a great way to do it.
Yeah, I live in a pit, so the only way that I can hear radio.
Hopefully a pit can mean many, many things. Is it a nice pit?
It's like a cell phone dead zone.
Oh, gosh, there are so many of those around. I totally know what you're talking about.
But my question was really more directed at you. Was how do you feel about gun rights? With what happened with this homeowner that defended his house in Las Vegas on a breaking and entering happened, I think, yesterday.
Give me a little more of the details. I didn't catch the story.
Okay, it was in the frontiersman that a homeowner there in Las Vegas had an armed break-in, and he actually was able to defend his own home using the burglar's gun.
Oh, I love that. How about that? Well, look, we have the castle law here in the state of Alaska. Anytime someone is on your property, certainly in your house, it is considered a threat, and it's a deadly threat, and you are entitled to terminate them. And so people should not find themselves accidentally inside someone's house. Otherwise, you may find yourself terminated at that point, since the person doesn't know what kind of a threat you are. If the person had a gun, obviously it is a deadly threat, so there's no question about that. There's no moral implication. There's no legal limitation on what the response should be. I would say that the guy's really lucky he got the gun away from the person. And what was the outcome? Was the other person killed or what?
He was apprehended by law enforcement.
All right.
But so the castle law, is that like the same law that's in Texas, the stand your ground law?
Yep. Well, stand your ground applies anywhere where you have the legal right to be. So you could be walking down a sidewalk, and if someone approaches you with what you consider to be deadly force, you have the right to respond with deadly force. The castle law, essentially what it means is you do not have the right, or you don't have the responsibility to retreat. Most of the time when you're in a public place, unless there's stand your ground laws or other laws like that, then you have the responsibility to retreat against deadly force before you're allowed to use deadly force. That's not the case in your house under any circumstances. If someone is in your house, they can be considered a deadly threat right off the bat.
Okay, So, but we don't have like a stand your ground law.
I
here.
think we
just-
actually did pass stand your ground, but I don't think it's ever been used. I don't think they have ever cited it in a case because it is extremely murky and people do not know how to apply it. They don't know where it applies or what it applies. You're allowed to defend yourself with deadly force, but they just have never invoked it. So it's Sarah, I know that a lot of people think stand your ground is sort of all around us and it happens all the time. It wasn't invoked in the Zimmerman case. That was actually a case where he was assaulted. He responded to deadly force with deadly force, totally justified. But that's just self-defense. So stand your ground is sort of a theoretical ability that you have to defend yourself against deadly force. The question comes in, of course, Sarah, how do you judge whether or not the other person is about to use deadly force against you? And that's just a very difficult thing. So most of the time, stand your ground laws are going to be prosecuted and found under self-defense.
Yeah, I can understand that. I actually am supportive of the stand your ground law because I don't believe that if your life is threatened, you should have that moment of hesitation where you could be killed yourself by somebody.
Yeah. It's very, very clear. If somebody's got a gun and they're going through, a crowded room and you can tell that something is up and they may use that gun to kill someone else, that to me just seems like self-defense. It doesn't sound like stand your ground. It sounds like you have a responsibility there. I just think, until I see how it's used and how it's defended and how it ends up, I like the idea of being able to deal with a deadly threat right away. The only thing which concerns me, Sarah, is how does a person know?
Exactly. And I think that's where this fail-safe should come on, where people have to go through training and that they need to know when is an appropriate time.
The problem with training is every situation is different. Just the look on the person's face could tell you. The way that they cocked the gun could tell you. The way that they're carrying could tell you. The fact that you saw an interaction beforehand, it's impossible to train people to know that deadly force is about to be used or used against you. It's just so difficult. So a lot of times we say, well, we can train for every situation. We just can't. It's this very difficult space between people just need to use common sense and know. And we just hope that the law will be behind them when that happens. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. I get that completely. And then, but on the side of training, I would say that law enforcement go through a rigorous training.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sarah, in my mind, they don't know either until they come up against situations. And we've seen several situations where law enforcement has done exactly the wrong thing, even though they were trained not to do it. So, and we've seen that over and over again. Hey, Sarah, really appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Day.
You too. KOAN, KVNT, The Glen Biegel Show. Give me a call, 569-1080, 569-1080, and 357-5868. Your drive home, give me a call. 5 minutes after the hour, it is the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN and KVNT. The hour sponsored for this hour of the program, Dr. Dan Kiley. If you're looking for someone to take care of your teeth so they can take care of you for a lifetime, how about this? He's got a great staff and just a wonderful way about him. 562-9209 gets you to his office. He's centrally located in Midtown on Lake Otis Parkway, 4050 Lake Otis Parkway, online at lakeotisdental.com. And you will find out something very important. What is on the ceiling of a conservative dentistry? Yes, you get to spend about a half an hour to an hour looking up at the ceiling. And I'm not going to tell you. You have to go find that out for yourself. But it's very important to know. Dr. Kiley, the hour sponsor for this hour of the program. Commonwealth North is sort of a fixture in Alaskan life. And they do a lot of things. And most of the things, if you're outside of the business community, you don't really see who did it. You just get to sort of experience the benefits or know that somebody's moving things and trying to figure things out in life and for the state of Alaska. One of the big questions that I have had, and I'm going to let in my studio here, Jim Egan and Shel Frasca are with me from Commonwealth North. I'm going to say it in kind of a harsh way, so that people understand how serious I believe our current budget situation is. And you're going to want to pull that microphone all the way over to you. I believe that our legislature and our governor are deciding who will stay in the state of Alaska. A lot of people think, you know what, we can continue to support 710,000 people at $50 a barrel oil. And, maybe with the military downsizing. I just am not convinced that that's true. At $3.5 billion, if the governor is successful at cutting the $200 million or whatever he wants to cut over the next 4 years, we will still have almost a $3 billion deficit. Well, that means because there's only about 150,000 tax-paying jobs that would actually be able to support paying a tax that the government would levy. Well, you'd be looking at $20,000 per family. People aren't going to stay here for that amount of money. So they're either going to decide that, these government services, which support people, and we're not going to look at jobs and we're not going to have things that people need in order to be able to stay here on their own, independently from government. So I see this as a big decision about who does the legislature favor in keeping in Alaska. That is a very serious question. And I don't know that anybody else has seen it that way, because everybody will say, we plan on keeping all 710,000 people here. And I realize that is a very politically easy thing to say, and it's very politically difficult to say that not all people may be able to stay in the state of Alaska. So I'm not asking you guys to say what I have said or even respond to it. I just want you to know how serious the threat is I see of this budget deficit. And I want you to know how thankful I am that Commonwealth North is actually there and preparing to address the situation in a calm and rational way, as you guys always do. So thanks so much for coming on. Why don't you introduce yourselves and then tell us a little bit about Commonwealth North, and then we'll talk about the budget.
Sure.
Oh, wait. Make sure their microphones are on.
Is the microphone on?
Yes, the microphone sounds great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Egan. I'm the Commonwealth North, and Commonwealth North is a public policy organization that brings together our members and other Alaskans to discuss policy challenges that face the state and try to come up with realistic answers to the challenges we face. And most recently, and since August, we've been working together with a group of our members and other Alaskans to try and analyze spending in the state of Alaska, specifically looking at the operating budget as distinct from the capital budget. And
which has kind of been zeroed out. So that other than just for federal matching funds, basically they have gone down to a zero funding for capital, and they probably will stay at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and among our challenges was to try and figure out what the largest cost drivers in the operating budget were and how we might organize ourselves to try and get a handle on that problem. One of the things we found was there's very limited time for legislators even to understand the budget when it comes to them. But we broke down into four groups in addition to our regular study group, and that included a group looking at legislative procedures, a group looking at how to communicate issues with these issues with Alaskans, a group that looked at measuring the effectiveness of agencies, and another group that looked at personnel cost containment. We know that the top drivers of the state operating budget are healthcare, education, and retirement.
Difficult subjects. You're talking immediately about people's paycheck, about the heartstrings of every single Alaskan and what we can and should do. But again, I'm going to get back to my suggestion that we are talking about who stays and who goes, because I know I can't pay a $20,000 state income tax. I can't. I will. So if we don't redesign the state budget, it's not me who's going to pay this, and there's a lot of other people who have businesses, whatever. They just simply are not going to stand for the state of Alaska not being responsible. So it's a very serious circumstance that we find ourselves in. Here with Commonwealth North, Jim Egan, Cheryl Frasca are on with us. A lot of questions to be asked and to be answered. When we come back, I want your immediate take on whether or not you think that this is a lasting low oil price, or actually it's a very moderate oil price. It's not low in historical terms. It's kind of normalized, and actually in historical terms, it was $49.50 or something a barrel, which is it's a complete shock, and we almost seem strange in saying it. But I want to get your take on that when we come back, and then we'll get into the intricacies of what it is we're going to do. Cheryl Frasca and Jim Egan here in the studio with me. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN, KVNT. I would love to hear from you. 569-1080 here in town, and out in the valley is 357-5868. And I've got a lot of great sponsors for this show. I'm so glad to have them with me. One of them is Country Financial. If you need somebody to help you figure out how to protect your car, your homes, your farms, your lives, whatever it is that you do, they are there to plan your present and plan for your future. Give them a call, 866-COUNTRY, and country is spelled
COUNTRY.
Appreciate that. After the hour, the Glen Biegel Show continues. 16 minutes after the hour, it is the Glen Biegel Show. And if you are looking for a new roof or just a roof replacement, it doesn't do you any good to actually wait on that. If there are brown spots on your ceiling, if you can see a little bit of sagging between your eaves, a lot more damage is being done than you can imagine. And it actually will cost you double, because then you'll have to have your roof repaired and also have the rest of your house repaired. The best place to do it, Better Business Bureau Business of the Year for 2010 across all businesses, the whole state of Alaska, the latest in technology. These people truly are gifted at what they do. Frank James and Becky Earhart, they'll take care of you. Give them a call, 345-5555. That is their number. When you think roofing, think Earhart, Earhart. In studio with me from Commonwealth North, I've got Jim E. Cheryl Frasca, and you guys are well known. Guys are sort of a voice of reason in what have been difficult times, and it seems like Alaska has been growing, and we've escaped so many threats from the rest of the economy and whatever. I don't know. My take is this is real and that this isn't going to go away. So my first question to you is, are we going to go up to, I don't know what the number is anymore, $120 a barrel oil, and we're going to be out of this and everything will just be fine? It'll be sunny skies?
Well, the challenge, this is Cheryl Frasca, and I co-chaired the Fiscal Policy Study Group with Eric Wolforth, who and participated in the discussion. And we think that it's the only prudent thing to do is to start the budget reduction, spending reduction process. And we make a series of recommendations about how to approach that because we know it's going to be difficult for the very reasons you described about education and Medicaid being the big cost drivers in the budget. But we think there's some things that they need to start doing now in order to make those kinds of serious but steady decline decisions so that we don't end up really literally falling over the fiscal cliff, which we've been talking about.
Scotiabank, I went to a Resource Development Council meeting, and Scotiabank was they were the presenter for the luncheon. And she said, and this was before, I think it had only gotten down to $60 a barrel, and she didn't know where it was going to go from there. They were estimating that it was not going to get above 70. That was their range. I don't think this is going to go away. And so I think that we need to plan for what are the essential services. Is that the basic question that you guys tried to answer first? I mean, what was the first thing that you tried to do? And again, I'm talking with Cheryl Frasca, Jim Egan, Commonwealth North. Go out and Google them. You'll find out just a wealth of information. What was the first question you guys asked?
Well, first we looked at cost drivers, but then second, we also looked at a framework by which we're asking the legislature and the administration to go through and seriously evaluate us by asking the questions. Is it a constitutional responsibility? If it isn't, we should stop doing it. If it is it being done effectively? Is the state getting the results, the program getting the results it was intended to get when it was created? Is it something that cost effective? How much money does it cost to deliver that level of results? Does it make sense? Does it pass the red face test? Is it something we can afford to continue to do in the same way or similar manner?
None of these questions, by the way, are political questions. No politician asks these questions. The people who we send down there, they're people from right down the street. They're not masters of industry. They don't $1 billion budget and shove it into a $4 billion box. They just don't know how. They don't know what to do.
Well, actually, the state law, several years ago, the legislature passed a bill that requires them to use this performance-based information to help inform its decisions. And the House Finance Committee actually is trying, but the challenge is they don't have enough time during the session to do this kind of work. And so that's why some of our recommendations relate to going back to the 120. Because if you've been down there, they're like deer in the headlights. They're just so over.
They got a stream of lobbyists coming in, begging them for more and more money, more and more stuff that the government can do. So that what the hope this year is, I was at a presentation, look, we're not going to be asking for more money, but they are asking for more money. But our hope is that we don't get cut too much. So they're hoping those aren't the kind of reasonable options that are before us. If we, even the governor, who I remember him saying he wanted to, and I realized that, I don't want to get anybody into trouble, but I remember him saying he was going to cut 25%. Apparently, he was talking about 25% of the administrative budgets of his departments, but not 25% of government, which means that instead of cutting 8% this year, he cut 2.4% of the total budget. We're going to end up with a $2.5 to $3 billion the budget that we will have to pay in taxes.
It's not going to happen next year.
Right.
At least
we've got some time.
But they have to start now. They can't just put a cut today. What you don't save today is something that doubles what you're going to have to do next legislative session. And so, I mean, they do have reductions starting now. And in fact, they should start with the current year budget. I don't, having the governor doing things like a travel freeze.
I think he did do it. I think he did do it. Yeah, he sent out a letter as a response. Actually, it was the legislature who asked him to do this, and I think that in the end, he probably acquiesced to at least some of this. My suggestion, by the way, and I have two of them. This one was brilliant, and when I come up with brilliant suggestions, I like to lay them out. As he's making fun of me, he's got his pen out. Jim Egan and Cheryl Frasca from Commonwealth North, that we have a balanced budget commissioner. The problem with this problem is it's much bigger than each department, which has political allies and things that it's grown to do and responsibilities that it's taken on, that it's like the base closure commission. That's the only thing in my experience which has been essentially depoliticized to stop the paralysis that's normal when you ask an organization like a legislature or a governor to do something which has never been done. We have never done a blueprint for this. We don't know what the roadmap says. We don't know where to go.
Right. Actually, having a commission similar to the BRAC process is part of our recommendation.
Is that right? Oh, that's brilliant.
Well, and it's also because we recognize how difficult these decisions are. And if there's a way that we can suggest a way forward so that it helps take off some of that pressure. And
do you think that the governor will take you up on it? I'm going to ask this do you think the governor will take Commonwealth North up on this? I mean, you guys are the masters of industry. You guys actually do know how, look, we are going to have to modernize. The internet revolution has occurred. All reality has changed. We are either going to adapt or we're going to die. You guys have businesses that have gone through that and go through that every day. Government is not that way. Your expertise is really what's called for here.
I think he's going to be generally receptive as he's asked for help. I don't know what he's doing with the help he's received so far, but he's asked for help and he's public about that. But I think in our recommendations, one of the things that we rely part of our approach is that it absolutely requires that the people of Alaska understand where we're at and where we need to be. There has to be some kind of outreach, a dialogue, as we say it, a statewide dialogue that's driven legislature to take these problems out into the state, bring them directly to Alaskans, and make sure that all Alaskans understand the situation that we're in.
Well, I'm going to have you spell out for us in detail. Hopefully you guys can stay another segment. And this is so important. I don't think people realize that we're not just talking politics. This is really happening. Something that's never happened before. A real threat to the economy of the state of Alaska like we've never seen. Let me go to David here and ask him what he thinks about this. David, welcome.
Yeah, I have a. First of all, I disagree with Cheryl and Brax. Brax are totally political. They're not economical, but that's beside the point.
Well, that was the point that I made, so you probably disagree with me too.
Well, I always disagree with you, Glenn.
Oh, thanks very much.
But anyway, my question to Mr. Egan and Ms. Frasca is the fact that let's look at K-12 education, and if you look at most of the districts, 90% of the operating costs are personnel. Now, if the district is negotiating contracts, and the state is having to pay for a lot of those contracts in personnel costs, how do we control that? Because there's, it's like me going out and getting a second mortgage and telling my neighbors to pay for it. So I'll
It's a great, fantastic, spot on. What do you do here? As he pointed out, the districts go out and negotiate. Our district negotiated 7% raises each year, every year over four years, ended up with a 28% raise. They expect, I guess, the state to pay for it. How do you? I guess the question he's asking is, can we do this without affecting education and education funding?
Well, I don't think that's what he was asking.
Okay.
I think about process, whether it's in the report we talk about all state employees going back to the negotiating table. Circumstances have changed, and most labor contracts have an opportunity to reopen negotiations at the request of either side. And this is one of those circumstances. They need to come back to the bargaining table and look at how realistic the terms of the contract are given the new revenue climate. So I think that's the responsible thing to do.
Well, and what you're saying is a different reflection of what I've said, which is the state's going to decide how many people stay here. One way to try and keep 710,000 people in the state of Alaska is to say we are going to spread the state expenditures across the same number of people, but it's going to be less. So each individual person is going to have to consume less state resources. That is one answer, which actually would keep 710,000 people potentially here, and a very important one. We are talking here with Cheryl Frasca and with Jim Egan, who are with the Commonwealth North, and you can go out and Google Commonwealth North. They have come out with something which is already in the Alaska Dispatch News, and it's already probably being savaged there. And the headline was, we need to look at reopening contracts. We need to look at what we can afford. How do we deliver state services, which we all consider critical, and maybe people might disagree on which one is critical and which one isn't. We'll get into that. That was a question that you guys asked and answered. Cheryl Frasca, Jim Egan, you're listening to the Glen Biegel Show on K. Give me a call, 569-1080 and 357-5868. 27 minutes before the hour. It's win-win. Like 11 minutes, we're going to give away a gift certificate to one of my favorite foods. I think I was literally addicted to this food for a long period of time. They are the best wings on the planet, and if you have not gone to Wings and Things, missing out. So they're on the corner of 36th and Arctic and 277 Wing. That is their number. But here at the 45-minute break, we will be giving away a gift certificate to Wings and Things, one of my favorite places. So I'm so glad they're a sponsor of the program. And, you should look forward to that. You will definitely enjoy. In the studio with me with Commonwealth North, Cheryl Frasca and Jim Egan are here with me, and I want to take a phone call. I'm interested mostly in your phone calls. If you have questions for our guests here and what it is that we face as the state of Alaska, they put out a kind of a guide to budget cutting, which a lot of businesses know how to do and no governments know how to do. The government or the governor actually proposed only a 2.4% cut, which is nowhere near what's required. Sue, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show. Thanks so much for being on. You're on with Cheryl Frasca and Jim Egan.
Hi. I just had a couple comments to make. I agree Alaska is in some serious trouble. Anchorage School District faces a lot of cutbacks, and it's only going to get worse the more children we have in here. But here's my thinking, and it's always been this, and that is when we sit there, I don't have a problem with teachers getting paid, okay? So correct me on that. But when we sit there and build these new schools and revamp them and give them a carpet in there or lounge facilities, this is not teaching our children, okay? So we're wasting money at that point. Now, I was reading that Colorado, in the first year that they legalized marijuana, made 30 taxes that went to the funding of schools or whatever that the state needed. Has come on board and has made this as well a legalized process. I think they need to look at what we can get from legalizing this marijuana issue. And
how much in state revenue we could get? Hey, Sue, it's a great question. So if we get similar amounts of, they have 5.5 million, 6 million people in Colorado. We've got 710,000. So we're talking about 1/8. So 1/8 of 30 million is, not a whole lot. I guess maybe $5 million. Do people are really having a difficult time understanding the numbers that Sue was talking about is 1/1000th of the amount of shortfall that we have. The human mind simply cannot conceive of $3.5 billion tiny population as the state of Alaska. How do we get this message out? How do we let people know how serious this really is?
One of the key things that we are trying to get people to keep in mind is the goal here is not just to cut the budget to meet the revenue coming in, but it's to right size our government. That's
a different question and a different answer.
Yeah, I think so. And when we talk about different revenue sources, that wasn't the charge of our report. I mean, really, the charge of our report was to address the spending side and to get ourselves under control into a budget, an operating budget that is, as sustainable as possible and still meeting our needs.
So, but still, a question that you brought up: what is an essential service? Obviously, Sue has brought up what she considers to be essential service. It's in the Constitution, Article 7. We have the right to a freely provided to every child in the state of Alaska public education.
But you also asked about how can we get Alaskans to realize the magnitude of this problem.
That's difficult. Sue is having difficulty thinking that we're going to fill this budget hole, $3 billion with marijuana. It's just not going to happen.
Right. But what Jim was talking about earlier in one of our recommendations is a process by which we do engage Alaskans. It's a very thoughtful design process that you provide information to Alaskans in community settings have them come together, review the information, and have it sink in, and then engage them in talking about the choices and trade-offs that will be necessary given this circumstance. And then based on that, if we find that Alaskans think, oh no, we can't have a state like this, that's not what we want, then we move into, well, how are we going to pay for it? And the reality will set in about the choices and the trade-offs. But this is a recommended dialogue process. We did these in Anchorage a couple of years ago with the city's budget, and those residents that came together found it to be a rewarding experience. They learned a lot about the city's finances, and they also made recommendations that actually did guide decision making. So it's an extensive process, but we think it's important to both help Alaskans understand it and for our elected officials to hear from Alaskans about what choices they think should be made.
Cheryl Frasca, Jim Egan is in the studio with us. Numbers here, 569-1080, 357-5868. And one of the things that I think is so important about those sessions that you're talking about, Cheryl, is it gives us some time. We think about it, we hear information, we process it, we get to think about it, we hear what the effects might be. This is a new situation, a new reality. It's not necessarily the end of the world, though. And I don't think people realize that. The state of spend anything like it does today in the past, even 10 years ago. If we went back to a budget of 10 years ago, we would actually still be in surplus, if I understand the numbers correctly.
We'd be striving for the same budget that we're striving for right now.
So, I mean, you could look at, okay, well, maybe that's our starting point, or maybe that's one of the suggestions is, what did we add in the last 10 years? Now, look, a lot of these things are federal mandates. The federal government has told us how we're going to spend and on our healthcare system, and all of these come with costs, and all of these cost drivers, as you guys have pointed out. The problem with cost drivers is it doesn't identify what we're do and what the people need us to do. That is a really hard question for people to get their head around, because look, the state of Alaska doesn't mandate that we train anyone, right? Our Constitution says that we're going to give people an education, but the training that happens post-secondary, that's just not there. And so, but everybody would say, well, gosh, that's something I really want to do. And the question is going to come back to people, and this is the hard part, to let them know, you personally are going to have to pay for that. You are going to have to write a check. I'm not talking about somebody down the street. I'm not talking about somewhere else. We're not going to get federal money for this. You personally will write a check so that that person can go down and get a training that they may or may not use. It just is going to it's going to take a complete reworking of people's minds and understanding of that government, which is something we've never had to pay for, and we actually get a check from every year. We are going to be writing the check to the government.
That's a big, I mean, you make a very strong point in that the dialogue that legislators have to go to when they're approached for projects, for new spending, there isn't that idea that they have to go back to their constituency and tell them why they have to spend more money for what they got. And I'm skirting around the idea that there's no skin in the game for many Alaskans. It's really hard to relate to adjustments in state spending when you're not spending money on it. But on the same idea where the legislators would have to come back to their districts and
say,
tell
hey,
people
district, guess
why
what?
they have
need
to spend
$300 million from you. I, your legislator,
Yeah.
am going to be asking you for $300 million to continue the current level of spending, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate it. How do you want me to get that from you?
Yeah.
That's a conversation we have not had recently.
Right. We use PayPal if you.
Yeah. You know, however you want to send it is fine. Box tops are good. It'll take 1,500 of those. You guys have started a process which is just going to be very difficult, because so many times the state has been saved. So many times we thought, look, we're in real trouble, and we weren't. And the price shot up, and then it shot up more, and then more and more and more and more, and we got a whole bunch of money in the bank. We have money in the bank right now. We have a permanent fund, which has money in it, but that's money that's really hard to get. So I still think we've got a lot of hurdles to explain to people that this is a very serious situation. It is very unlikely to change because the world, fiscal financial situation for oil is just not going to change unless we can figure out how to get offshore, Anwar, one of these major projects to happen. And even that doesn't solve the stakes. At least it gives us jobs, so we can do something about it. So the process that you've started is what? You've created a document, the documents, and then what are you guys going to do next?
Well, the report makes a number of recommendations about steps to take for the legislature and the administration to engage Alaskans, as we've talked about, in educating, advancing their understanding of the problems. We also make a number of recommendations related to budget practices and processes that we think limit the scrutiny of the legislature on spending. And we talked about the framework. Everything should be evaluated. We know that.
Can I interpret there, because there's a lot of words in there? Is what you're saying that the legislature, basically most of the time, their job is to go in, figure out, do you need a 2% increase or a 5% increase? They never pull back the covers. They never ask, what are you doing? Is it effective? Is it efficient? Should you keep doing it? Can I afford for you to continue to do? They don't ask those kinds of questions. Is that a good review of what you're saying?
Yes, and we talked about that a little bit ago, that the House Finance subcommittees and committee is trying to do some of that, but they don't have the time during the session. So our recommendation is you need to work during the interim. You need to do this kind of evaluation and also engage Alaskans in that review, not stakeholders, not people who benefit from the services, but businesses. They have a different approach to analyzing services delivery.
Well, you're saying something there that's a big deal. Businesses have a totally different approach. Businesses are oftentimes presented with the reality, folks, we're going to have 40% less revenue next year. Figure out how it is you're going to deal with that. If you can't, you need to find yourself another job. That's just the reality of the situation business goes through. Government has never done that. Cheryl Frasca, Jim Egan, I really appreciate you guys coming in. Thanks for writing this report. Commonwealth North is where you're going to find this report, and they've started writing about it in the Alaska Dispatch News. You are going to see this discussed all over the map, and I appreciate you guys for coming on and telling us about it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
The Glen Biegel Show continues. It is 14 minutes before the hour. Okay, we got to give away wings right now. Right now, these wings, and here's my suggestion. Hot wings, extra saucy. You need about 10 of them, and it will not... What number are we going to give these away to? Number 4? Caller number 4 right now, 569-1080. I really would love to have a Valley winner for this, by the way. 357-5868. Yes, it's here in town, but we will take caller number 4, 569-1080. 3868. Give us a call, and you will be the winner of a gift certificate to Wings and Things, one of my favorite places. You've never had hot wings like this. Of course, sandwiches too. They got meatball subs and all kinds of different things there as well. But a gift certificate to Wings and Things. Give us a call, 569-1080, and we will be giving it away to the winner of Wing Wednesday here on the Glen Biegel Show. 569-1080, and out in the Valley, 357-5868. So there are a number of things going on. It's fascinating to talk to people who are in business because they have such a rational approach to something that's totally irrational. Politics is totally irrational. And by the way, somebody had on the back of their car, and I was considering whether or not a lawsuit might be appropriate. We still haven't had a winner, by the way. Give us a call. 569-1080. Oh, it's too late. That's it. Caller number 4 just showed up. So the winner of Wing Wednesday, we will announce, by the way. That's why we wanted to give it away before the end of the show. It's 8 minutes before the hour here on the Glen Biegel Show. But one of the things which is absolutely true, most of our lives are essentially irrational, emotional, and we make our decisions, and then we find sort of data to kind of backfill in the information we need in order to justify our decision, which was made on an emotional and an irrational basis. Is this a winner, or did he just want to go on? All right, he wants to go on. Give us a call, 569-1080. We're still looking for a winner for... Oh, you gave it away? All right, it's already given away. Too late, sorry. So everybody's going to get back off the air. Now let me go to Richard. Richard, welcome to KOAN KVNT, the Glen Biegel Show. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon. I enjoyed your little presentation there with the economic development.
Yeah, there was Commonwealth North and Cheryl Frasca and Jim Egan, two of the masters of industry. They have been around the state and helped design city budgets and state budgets. I mean, these guys really are the brains.
Here's a thought. We have more resource to use in Alaska than probably any place else in the world.
Yep.
Here's a call out for basement and garage experimenters and scientists and chemists and whatever discipline they want to be in to figure out how to use coal clean and efficiently.
Well, they have figured out a lot of that. They can gasify coal. They can turn coal into gas. They can turn it into liquid fuel.
Why aren't we using it? Why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we developing that?
Yes. Well, look, I think it's a great idea. The reason why you don't is because they don't need to. It actually it takes quite a bit of effort to gasify or liquefy coal.
This is why, if you've got the garage scientists and the chemists sitting around, playing with this,
maybe they'll come up with something. Maybe they'll be able to come up with a process which is quick and efficient. Well, Richard, what you've pointed out here is we have enough coal in the state of Alaska, and they're trying to shut down the Chewitna coal right now. And I'm actually going to have them on there. I met the guy who runs that project and is desperately trying to give the city of Tyonek somewhere between 100 and 300 jobs just for one village. I mean, it's going to be an absolute boon for that place.
Well, what we never hear much about is the villages around Red Dog, do we?
Nope. You never hear about problems there because the people there live well.
So having a job or having some form of industry that is long-term and long-haul must have some kind of effect on them.
Here's my question, Richard. Why didn't Red Dog go down to Pebble and say all this garbage that you're hearing about this killing salmon streams, it saved salmon streams. There's more salmon, and salmon have moved further up the streams around Red Dog than they ever did.
Wasn't this the same argument we had? The caribou can't get past the pipeline?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll all die because they'll be looking at the pipeline just completely freaked out by it.
Yep.
Well, when do we stop believing the environmentalists who have fooled us so many times?
Well, when we stop believing science by consensus. Because
science is not consensus, by the way, and Richard is exactly right.
We've been told that for so long that the consensus says that the sky is flat.
Yeah.
Well, the science, bring me the data that shows. I have had several conversations over my counter of my shop when people were coming in. They talk about global warming. I says, bring me the data. Bring me the raw or the data that proves your statement, and I'll listen to you. Otherwise, shut up.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is, Richard, is they started this in the 80s. Look, this is catastrophic. It is happening whether we like it or not, and no matter what it costs.
Do you remember global cooling?
Yes, I absolutely do. In the 70s, everything was cooling down because we were going through a cold decade.
Well, that didn't sell worth a darn, did it?
No, it sure didn't. Look, global warming is really hard to sell, by the way, everywhere else other than Alaska, because the jet stream switched around, and the East Coast is getting absolutely hammered.
Well, here's a sidebar to it. Yale University had a phenomenal disappointment.
Uh-oh. We don't like them to be disappointed down at Yale because they get mad.
They had to cancel a climate change rally because of weather.
Because of snow. Oh, that's funny. Hey, Richard, I really, really appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much, and make sure to call again.
Thank you.
All right. You've been listening to the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN KVNT. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and listening to me on your drive home. Make sure to tune in for Tom Anderson. I'm just going to call him Anderson because that's how he refers to himself whenever he talks in the third person on a show. I don't think I've laughed as much at a radio program or with a radio program as with Tom Anderson this morning. He is hilarious. He's got this stream of consciousness that goes on, and I highly recommend him to you.
And don't you just love his accent?
Yeah, I do.
He definitely does not have an Alaskan accent.
Well, but he was born here, so I don't know where he borrowed his accent from. But look, I'm going to give him credit for that and everything else. Make sure to tune in for him. Joe Miller comes on just before me here in town. Lars Larson before me out in the valley. Folks, I hope you have a great Wednesday. Thanks for participating in Wing Wednesday. And make sure to tune in tomorrow for the program. Go to visit Payless Car Sales if you're looking for a great deal on cars. They are at 919 East 5th Avenue, 677 Auto. They do car sales a different way. And tomorrow we're going to be giving away two $50 gas cards on behalf of Payless Car Sales. Just a great place. Ollie and his team there. God bless, folks. Have a great Wednesday.